Every ecosystem functions as an active, highly structured thermodynamic engine. The system depends on the specific flow of energy and matter moving between living communities and their non-living environment. This engine utilizes internal cybernetic features to achieve self-regulation. We must examine the mechanics of how this system powers itself, builds its physical structure, and resists its own collapse. This analysis starts with raw solar radiation and the inescapable laws of physics. Looking past individual species reveals the mathematically bound thermodynamic network operating underneath. Raw solar radiation serves as the singular power supply driving the entire biological network. Inefficiency is built into the point of entry, as producers capture only about 1%. Plants immediately consume a portion of this energy to sustain themselves, losing it to the system as respiratory heat. Subtracting that respiratory loss from the GPP leaves the net primary productivity, or NPP. This NPP represents the total fuel available to drive every consumer level of the biological machine. The first law of thermodynamics dictates this accounting, as energy transfers from the sun to plants and animals while remaining perfectly conserved in total. However, the second law states that every biological transfer degrades energy into dispersed heat, making the flow strictly unidirectional. This thermodynamic inefficiency physically restricts the maximum size and complexity of an ecosystem. That unidirectional flow creates a physical hierarchy, stacking the ecosystem into vertical trophic levels. The pyramid of energy illustrates this clearly. At every successive level, only 10% of the energy successfully transfers upward, causing a rapid decline in available fuel at the secondary level. By the apex, the energy starvation is so extreme it strictly limits the existence of tertiary consumers. The pyramid of number translates this invisible math into population constraints, beginning with a wide base of producers. Because of the 90% heat loss at every step, top predators inevitably have the smallest populations and lowest total biomass. The rigid physical constraints of thermodynamic heat loss govern the architecture of every food chain. Ecological succession represents the sequential assembly process of a community. These systems are computed through distinct serial stages, beginning in a sterile environment. This diagram starts with nudation, a bare area where a pioneer community like lichens establishes the first foothold. These organisms drive the process of reaction, physically modifying their hostile environment by breaking rock into soil. By modifying the environment, these organisms eventually make it unsuitable for themselves, forcing their own replacement by grasses and shrubs. This same algorithmic assembly occurs in aquatic environments, known as a hydrosphere. The accumulation of dead organic matter steadily reduces pond depth, pushing the stages from submerged plants to a marsh meadow. This culminates in the climax community, a terminal stage in long-term equilibrium with the local climate. Succession acts as a predictable biological algorithm that iteratively engineers stability out of chaos. Maintaining a climax community requires an active cybernetic defense against constant environmental stress. The homeostatic plateau represents the mathematical range of stress variables an ecosystem can tolerate. Negative feedback mechanisms serve as internal tools to counteract deviations and pull the system back to its baseline. Extreme stressors can push the ecosystem beyond this maximum tolerance limit. Breaching that limit triggers a positive feedback mechanism, where the system loses control and accelerates the deviation. Runaway positive feedback leads inevitably to the collapse of the entire biological machine. Survival depends on the biological machine's ability to keep environmental variables trapped within the boundaries of negative feedback. Biodiversity determines the actual width and resilience of that homeostatic plateau. A highly interconnected network prevents a single point of failure from crashing the system. Complexity at the genetic, species, and ecosystem levels provides the literal shock absorbers for this thermodynamic machine. Aggressive harvesting and massive deforestation rapidly remove these crucial nodes, entirely stripping the biological system of its natural buffering capacity. Furthermore, non-biodegradable toxins like DDT introduce severe chemical threats through biological magnification. These toxins bypass natural negative feedback loops, concentrating at every step of the trophic pyramid until they poison the apex. This scene reveals a system that has breached its upper limits and entered a state of positive feedback collapse. Ecosystems function as strictly governed thermodynamic networks. Breaking their internal physical laws ensures systemic failure.